Today we're going to talk about the proposed budget for the 2017-2018 school year. As you know, we always remember our mission statement. You can see our new logo, which we're very proud of, and it really speaks to our mission statement and our core values. And in a nutshell, we're talking about empowering ourselves and students, challenging ourselves and students, and growing as we continue lifelong learners. Along with that, we have our core values, and it's important that we always we do not become desensitized to our mission statement and our core values, because that's our belief system, and based on our belief system we develop a budget. So as we move forward, gaining a better understanding of the board adopted budget, I think it's important. Many times we hear all these technical terms and they just kind of mean something or a little something or nothing, and it seems complex, but it's really not that complex. So of course we know what a budget is the money we spend on an annual basis in our school district. And the budget is composed of these different components. The tax levy, which is the amount that you receive in property taxes. So the tax levy is what you receive from homeowners, from businesses, and even renters. I always say we all pay property taxes one way or another. The tax levy increase is a calculated amount of property tax increase in accordance with the tax cap legislation. So that's a very small percentage that also becomes part of the budget. So now we have two components. We have the first component, which is the majority of the budget, and this is a very small percentage. Then we receive state aid, and many of you, we know this year, the budget was not finalized on time, and we were all on edge, wondering what are we going to do? But we were able to have a budget from New York State, and we do receive state aid, which is another part that creates the budget, which is another component to the budget. Then there's other revenue, financial resources. So when you think about other revenues, we still are somewhat of a business, and of course, one example is the interest earnings that we receive. And lastly, there's the assigned fund balance, which is an amount that's specific to help the taxpayer along as well, to relieve some of the burden on the taxpayer that also is part of the budget. And the assigned fund balance is basically what I call, in everyday terminology, the savings we have as a school district. But it's a little more complex than that. But for everyday language, talking about what makes a budget, these components is what creates a budget on an annual basis for a school district. With that said, now this is a pie chart that really shows the breakdown of what we just talked about on this page. So our budget, our proposed budget for this school year is $225,181,606. As you can see, that first component, the tax levy, 70%, almost 71% of our budget is really based on property taxes. Property taxes. Then a little over 25% is based on state aid, the money we receive from the state, from New York State. And then the assigned fund balance, that little savings we talked about, is about 1.67%. And the other revenue, the interest earnings that we make, is 1.59%, and the tax levy increase, it's a very small percentage, as I indicated, 0.67%. All of these components, as you can see in the pie chart, creates this budget. So that first page is critical to understand what creates a budget, and the pie chart is the breakdown. So for those of you who teach in the upper grades, this would be great for a math class to explain to your students and have them figure out what the budget for Wappinger Central School District is composed of. So we can definitely send you this PowerPoint presentation. But the board adopted budget, also to understand, it's not something that we create overnight. We're very transparent. We start in the fall of this school year. So in October, we provided the Board of Education with the budget process, what's going to take place throughout the year, and the dates that, the things that we will be doing to develop the budget. This year we also had two superintendent's forums, that were held publicly so that community members and staff members could come in and ask questions, make recommendations for the upcoming budget. So as you can see, we had one in the fall, and then we also had one early spring, March 27th. In addition to that, we provided with the general support instruction presentation and the transportation and undistributed budget presentation. Those presentations are prior to the superintendent's recommended budget. So basically, you take Principal Rooney, for example. She submits her budget proposal, and it's like a list. It's like a little child going to town and writing Santa Claus a letter and asking for all these toys. So when we present these to the Board of Education, it looks astronomical because we provide them. We're very transparent about everything that everyone in the district is asking for. Then, of course, we understand what our limitations are, and basically, we then try to balance this budget and stay within the tax cap, which we'll talk about soon. With that said, we continue, and we have then the superintendent's budget presentation, and that gets tweaked for the next couple months or so. And at a certain date, the Board of Education adopts the superintendent's recommended budget. And as we call this, the roadshow, we go to every school and we provide you with the presentation of the budget. And then there's a New York State budget mandatory hearing, which will take place May 8th. And as you can see, this school year, the Board of Education decided to do an additional hearing, which is not mandatory, which already took place on March 27th. So let's move forward. We talked about what the budget composes of. We talked about the proposed budget, which is a slightly over $225 million. And that levy to levy that we talked about, the property tax, that 70%, almost 71% of what the school budget is made of, is less than 1% this year. So basically, the state education, the state created the formula for the schools, and so it starts off at 1.26%. Then, of course, we have to put in all of our calculations, and once everything gets figured out, then each school district has their own unique levy-to-levy tax base. And this year, we're slightly under 1%. We're the lowest, I believe, in the county in terms of our levy-to-levy increase. Our budget-to-budget increase, that's that $225 million. This is dollar to dollar. From the previous year is a 1.8% increase. So what we'd like to share with you is that the levy-to-levy increase is only 0.95%, and it's within the tax cap. This was our allowable money to spend, and the technical term, or the term that people use, is when you go over that, it's piercing the tax cap. We have never pierced the tax cap. So we're staying within the 0.9, we're at the 0.95%. And of course, we really take pride in being fiscally responsible and planning for a very fiscally responsible budget, which is a 1.80% increase from the previous year. With that said, I'd like to also always show some historical evidence of how we have spent our money. I try to keep it current for the last 3 years. And as you can see, 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, technically, it was a little over $214 million. And last year, the money we're working with this year's $221 million plus, and the proposed, as I said before, is $225 million. So what does it mean? What does it mean to have a 1.80% increase? Well, now we're talking about new programs and initiatives. And we're looking at least restrictive environment for the school district. Many of you who have been here for rather long time understand, for example, Oak Grove does not have an ICT program, and it won't have an ICT program. But technically speaking, in our school district, historically, we always, at the primary grade levels, have had 3 sections of ICT. So there are 3 sections of ICT in kindergarten, first grade. I see some of you nodding your head, which that's a great affirmation as I continue to present. But the part about having 3 sections is that we're not looking in terms of our community schools to be least restrictive. So when students are being classified, technically we're looking at 3 placements that they can go to. So it's, let's say if there's a kindergarten student that needs to have an ICT program here at Oak Grove, they may end up at Gayhead because there's no program here. So what we're doing is we're increasing the ICT opportunity for students to stay within their community schools or within their area. Therefore, now those classes will decrease also in size, as opposed to saying, oh, there's an extra space, there's 11 seats, there's one more space for another student. We could put that child, let's say, at Fishkill Plains Elementary School because they have 11 seats and there's 1 seat left. That's not how we should be operating with any of our students, because it goes against our grain. It goes against our mission statement and our core values. In addition to that, we're going to help with the science curriculum. We know that we have new standards to look at, but we're going to have an extensive writing summer curriculum project going for elementary schools, and really trying to see how we could become a little more interdisciplinary in scope and write curriculum or curriculum mapping for science. And part of that is going to be, which will show that we are looking at this new initiative seriously, that classroom observations, at least one, we will be looking at what science looks like at the elementary level in our schools. So with that said, the same thing will happen with social studies and curriculum writing and enhancements. And what I also like to say is that with the science curriculum writing, there's also additional money for classroom libraries that the schools will get, so that they can increase the level of, bless you, the level of nonfiction books and related to science. So we will be doing that as well, and it's right there. A new app to improve upon communication. Some of you may be from another school district and have seen how school districts have apps. And as we look again, developing writing enrichment opportunities for students in K-8. So that's going to be a collaboration. Share with your principal what you think may be some of the things that we can do. That's not set in stone. It could encompass some after school. It can be part of an integral part of the school day. But we will continue to talk about these writing enrichment enhancements and really get creative how we can provide this opportunity for our students. New programs and initiatives require teachers. They require teaching assistants, formal summer curriculum writing, as I mentioned already, supplies and resources, and of course improvement of classroom resources and infrastructure. With that said, I don't like reading to adults. I never have. I don't like when people do it to me. So if we can take a quick glance at what we continue to sustain here at the Wappinger Central School District. These are all of the great things we started as of like 3 years ago, and we continue to sustain, we continue to enhance them for our staff, our students, and our community. Just to point out a few is the expansion of CTI slots with Dutchess County BOCES. That's really providing high school students the opportunity to attend a vocational program of sorts at the at Dutchess County BOCES. We have, well, I'm just going to go to the next page. So let's talk about the budgetary personnel additions that are part of this budget. So at the elementary level, in order to expand upon ICT to really look at least restrictive environment, we're going to need special education teachers. In addition to that, Wappinger Central School District, in just the past 2 years, our ENL, formerly English as a second language, our students that receive ENL services have increased by 58% in just 2 years. Last year we talked about hiring more ENL teachers, and this year we have to look again to hire an additional ENL teacher. For example, last year we talked about, let's say, least restrictive environment for ENL students. Both high schools have their own programs. Students in the John Jay community no longer have to come into RCK for ENL. They can stay in their community schools. But last year we were talking less than 30 students. This year, for next year, we're talking over 60 students for the 2 high schools. So we're going to need an additional teacher. In addition to that, 9 teaching assistants to help with ICT and to establish some equity amongst the elementary schools. With respectfully saying, what I discover is that there really is no rhyme or reason on how teachers have been distributed, teaching assistants throughout the elementary schools. So for example, in some schools you hear of AISTAs, you may hear about an ENLTA. So what we're going to do, and we started the conversation already with the principals, is to really make sure that there's equity amongst all the elementary schools with teaching assistants. Then after that, there will be some non-negotiables where these teaching assistants will go. And then there will be about a formula of, like, let's say 60% that Oak Grove, because we're here at Oak Grove, will have the opportunity to see how to adequately have these teachers service our students in the school. But we don't want someone coming in and saying to, once again, because we're in Oak Grove, I'll just use Ms. Rooney as an example. Well, at Fishkill, they use the teaching assistant this way. Well, yeah, they can. But these are some of the non-negotiables, and we all do, in all of our schools, are standardized and uniform in terms of the way we use our TAs. And then, of course, I talked about the summer curriculum writing project. Stay tuned. The postings will come out soon. And it's summer curriculum writing, and those of you who have participated in mapping curriculum writing know that it's one of the best types of professional development that you can actually be part of. With that said, now let's talk about the non-personnel items. We talked about the career technical instruction, opportunities for high school students. We're going to add an additional, I believe, 15 seats for students this school year. So we're back to the original number from about 6-7 years ago, before we were all facing this major fiscal crisis. So we're proud about that, because there's always a waiting list for our high school students wanting to go to CTI. In addition to that, I came across and learned that the Summer Scholars Program was eliminated as well for high school students to attend. And during the summertime, it's a week-long program, which is a very enriching program. So we bought 6 seats, we just call them seats, but we bought 6 seats for students to attend. And again, the mobile application that we talked about for improving communication. So this is broken down, and the Duchess BOCES component part of the budget. Then we're looking at equipment. We continue to enhance our playgrounds. We're getting pianos. We haven't bought pianos in ages. And so we're gonna buy 4 pianos. And I'm not gonna read to you everything that's in the equipment component. And as you can see, materials and resources, these are the items that are listed here. I'll just mention, we continue to improve upon classroom and student furniture. Also for teachers, we are going to be on our 3rd year of Parent University. And so what I'd like to say is that part of this money is that summer curriculum writing as well. And typically we spend around $50,000 a year. We'll be spending $75,000 a year to really support that science instruction that we were talking about. So once again, broken down in a different way from this school year, the tax levy, that 70% that I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, for this school year, it was approved by the voters, and our tax levy, $159,426,539. What we're proposing in terms of the tax levy for the 2017-18 school year is $160,936,353. So that levy to levy in dollars, the increase, we're talking $1,509,814. And once again, you saw this percentage, less than 1%. That's the increase on the levy. And if we go over to the right side of the spreadsheet, you will see what it means in dollars. So we talked about this already. I showed you previously. This year we're working with a little over $221 million. The proposed budget is $225 million. And the budget to budget dollar increase is about close to $4 million, which is 1.80%. So as we continue to move forward, once again, we break it down even more. That pie chart you saw, the terminology that we reviewed in the beginning of the lesson, I said the lesson, but the presentation. Once a teacher, always a teacher, right? But it's always good to really provide that prior knowledge or make sure that students understand the terminology of what it is we're talking about. So that summary that I gave you on what makes a budget, now you see it in a spreadsheet as opposed to a pie chart. And you see it in 2 years, what we were working with, the state aid, the other revenue, the assigned fund balance, and the tax levy. So this is the breakdown of the pie chart along with the this present school year's budget. With that said, last year, do you remember the presentation? We created a puzzle and putting the pieces together. So this year we were thinking, what can we do? What can we do? And what I thought was important is that we are really fiscally responsible and we create a balance. We have a balance, making sure that we constantly look at teaching and learning. And I was pretty candid last year about our infrastructure. There's a lot to be done. We need help with our curve appeal. That's just one area. But there's a lot to be done in our schools. And of course, we passed a capital improvement project. We will get started. We have gotten started. And a lot is happening in our schools and a lot will continue to happen. So basically, it's really creating that balance of making sure that our schools look great for you, for our students, for our community, as well as making sure that we continue to work and enhance our teaching and learning for you and for our students. So in a nutshell, this is basically what the budget represents this year. I'd like to just indicate too that great things are happening, not only with the infrastructure, but with teaching and learning. Right now, John Jay High School is the second highest graduation rate in the county. We're at 94% at John Jay High School, and we're really close to hitting 90% with Boise Ketchum High School. It was 89.4. Had it been 89.5, we would be saying they have a 90% graduation rate. But overall, and Orchard View Alternative High School also increased by 7%. So that's very telling. That's the evidence that you want to show the community and let them know about the great things that are happening in our school district.
Briefly, we just would like to speak to you about Proposition 2, which is the 2017-18 bus purchase. We always like to provide some fun facts, and one of the interesting things that we like to note is that we travel to over 130 out-of-district programs and schools, in addition to our 120 square miles for our 15 school in district school buildings. And we transport about 12,033 students a day. We travel over 3 million miles, and we do that with 252 vehicles currently. As you are aware, we are looking at we are implementing a two-tier bus system and a change in start time for next school year. And what does that mean? It still means the same number of vehicles. We're going to still be able to accomplish this transportation system with 252 vehicles. So for the 17-18 proposition, we're asking for 23 new vehicles. Well, we will be replacing out 23 vehicles that are temporarily out of service or permanently out of service that no longer will pass inspection or just have so many miles on them that we really need to transfer them out. So this is the breakdown of what our request will be for the 17-18 school year. And we also are very mindful in that we keep the level of requests even from year to year. The tax cap has played a big part in how we figure our budget, and this request, because it's debt service, we're going to be using short-term borrowings in order to be paying for these buses. They're revolving over 5 years. These short-term borrowings do impact the tax cap. So if we keep the amount that we request from year to year level, at least it's not impacting the tax cap for our taxpayers and helps us to maintain that level, a level tax bill from year to year. But the annual cost is approximately $412,000, but we receive state aid. So when you take that state aid amount out, we're looking at approximately $185,000 a year for these 23 new vehicles spread out over the entire tax base of the Wappinger Central School District. We also have a brief discussion about the 17-18 contingency budget. We're very hopeful that that will not be the case in the coming year. However, we do have to share this information with you with regard to what level the contingency budget would be at. As the superintendent had shared in the beginning of the presentation, the difference between this year's levy and next year's levy is about 0.95%, and that equates to $1,509,814. Because of the way the tax cap legislation is written, that's what our cap would be. Instead of taking that new tax levy amount, we would have to take the 16-17 tax levy amount, meaning we would have to cut $1.5 million from the budget as it currently stands. We have to cut equipment, mandatory. It's not a contingent item according to New York State. And then the rest is up to administration and the Board of Education to find a plan that's feasible. The superintendent is very, very into data, so we like to provide you with the historical contingency budget reductions for the last 2 years, and then the proposal for 17-18. We have seen a significant fluctuation in how much our contingency budget needed to be cut by. Again, that's all related to that tax cap calculation. All of the new items in the 17-18 budget would be removed from the contingency budget, as well as the class size reduction work that has been done by the administration, so that we would get to the $1,509,814. But as you can see, in 15-16, we were looking at almost a $2.3 million cut. For 16-17, it was 3.2. And even in 17-18, it's 1.5. None of those are easy decisions to make, and none of them are any conversation that we want to have any further than just informing you and hoping that it will not be the case after the budget vote on May 16th. We have 6 voting locations. Those have not changed from year to year. They're shown here on the screen. We are providing information budget presentations to the community. As the superintendent had indicated, we did have a presentation in Spanish at Wappingers Junior High that was videotaped and will be on our website in the coming days. We have a presentation this evening at Myers Corners, and then 2 more in the coming weeks just leading up to the budget vote. Website, we have all of our past presentations, the budget document in its entirety. Recorded version of this presentation will make it there. Frequently asked questions, lots of information available in case people don't have the opportunity to be able to come out and see us and have and ask us questions, or have the opportunity to see us live in our roadshow presentation. We also have a budget email. On the 16th, our polling times are from 7:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. and the voting locations are listed there again. The important thing to note on this screen is that on May 11th is the last day to register. Whether you are a Wappingers resident or you live in another school district, that's a statewide date. So any district, if you need to register, that would be the date with which you need to do that by in order to be able to vote on May 16th.
Overall, we're acknowledging you, we're acknowledging our community, and that's important to note, along with our Board of Education and staff members and administration. Provided you with the budget presentation, which is a great thing because it means sustainability, and the direction that the district is heading has not changed, and we continue to work based on our goals, based on our strategic plan. There is no information where you can say, where did this come from? We know what our short-term plans are, what our long-term plans are. Give you an example, we have 221 elementary classroom teachers, or 221 classrooms at the elementary level. We have not taken away any teachers because we do believe in the reduction of class sizes. And if kindergarten could be 19 or 20 students, that would even be more ideal. But going from 27 to 22, which was the average in the district, and we will continue to enhance programs, services, and instruction throughout the district and make sure that our schools look presentable and are presentable for you, for our staff, for other staff members, for our community members, our parents, and our students. So I thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you again